We're road tripping in the SEC this weekend. 20th ranked Ole Miss hitting the road to take on Kentucky. And it might be a sour taste in the mouth of Ole Miss entering this game as you look at Lane Kiffin, because just last year, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky at home as a 17.5-point favorite. It was their only unranked loss and probably their largest college football playoff resume blemish, a reason why they weren't in that top 12. But it is a new year, and here we go, continuing the series of Ole Miss, where they are 7-3 against Kentucky since 2000. Kentucky is 3-2 against ranked Mississippi in the past 5 meetings. We'll see how that all plays out this Saturday in Lexington. Pleased now to welcome in Josh Edwards, who covers Kentucky for 24/7 Sports, and Chase Parham, who covers Ole Miss also for 24/7. Fellas, let's get into this one, and we kind of led into how last year played out. And Chase, I want to build on that a little bit more and have you maybe look squarely at Lane Kiffin. Of course, he always moves the needle, but you look towards the start of this game, the start of SEC play. Are they focusing too much on a Kentucky squad that has not had the recent success as they get going for this one?
Yeah, Lane Kiffin really honest last week during his media session. He said that this is the game that's haunting him all offseason. He said it is absolutely the game that they have spent a good bit of time on. That, you know, you look at what happened last year, and it 100% was the biggest critical mistake for missing the college football playoff. That was a team that was built, developed, and bought for the college football playoff last season, a team that probably should have competed for a national title. They won their all 10 games by double digits. They lost 3 by single digits, the only single-digit games they played. And you can kind of excuse at LSU, at Florida, teams with really good quarterbacks, teams that were competing nationally at that time. The Kentucky loss, though, Kentucky went Ole Miss in 7 in the SEC. It was one of those deals where styles make fights. Kentucky's strength was the middle of their defensive line. Ole Miss had a hard time blocking them. They made critical mistakes, and it's stuck with Lane Kiffin. So there's no doubt you can argue either it's the correct amount of preparation or too much preparation. But Ole Miss, all attention on Kentucky this weekend in Lexington.
Yeah, from a national perspective, last year it seemed like anytime somebody talked about Ole Miss missing the playoffs, it was brought up, well, you should have lost to Kentucky at home. And I guarantee that Lane Kiffin has not forgotten about that since it occurred just a year ago. These teams have a very interesting rivalry. They don't play all that often, but every time that they do play, it does seem to be a one-score game. And I think that's what Mark Stoops wants to do again this week, drag Ole Miss down into this fist fight, run game, play defense, try to get out of there with a one-score win. I think that's kind of the model for Kentucky this year, but I don't think they're going to be sneaking up on Ole Miss this year after what happened last year.
Yeah, preparation certainly there. Preparation for a new starter, of course, Chase, for Ole Miss. Now the Jackson Darters left for the NFL. Austin Simmons last week, the team puts up 63 points. He has 3 passing TDs, 2 interceptions. What's the feel on that Austin Simmons has with this roster, with this offense, doing what Lane Kiffin wants?
Yeah, Austin Simmons has all the ability in the world. He's going to be incredibly good before he gets done in Oxford. He threw for 341 yards last week against a pretty hapless Georgia State team. But what you like about Austin Simmons from the opener was that he threw 2 early interceptions. One his fault, where he didn't see backside coverage. One, he was hit as the ball was let go, was not his fault. In that little bit of adversity, he kind of came back from immediately. Look, Ole Miss was running free and loose with wide receivers. Georgia State couldn't cover them. So we don't know sort of the stress points yet from an Ole Miss offense that put up nearly 700 yards last week. I think they're going to score points again. The question for Austin Simmons is, can you avoid those critical mistakes? He had a few during scrimmages during the preseason. Again, he threw 2 picks against Georgia State, recognizing the field, not letting the moment get too big. He's incredibly confident. He's one of the most confident players that I've ever covered, even this quickly and this early in his tenure as far as playing time. But he has to keep that in check. There's going to be some adversity. There's going to be some moments. And for him, it's try not to do too much. Stay within the system, stay within himself to some extent, but then let it loose when the time comes. Because as Josh mentioned, Ole Miss is going to try to score, kind of outpace Kentucky, and not let's turn into some kind of fourth quarter rock fight where anything can happen.
Josh, I remember when Kentucky kind of felt like they were a program that was an upstart in the SEC under Mark Stoops when he was a popular coaching name maybe for other jobs. That seat now certainly has to be hot, you have to feel, in Lexington. 4-8 last year, 1-7 in SEC play, some of the worst they've been in quite some time. What's the level of desperation for a win for Mark Stoops to maybe try to cool down that seat a little bit?
Yeah, this is a program that had been relatively consistent for much of the Mark Stoops era. They just this past year ended their bowl streak of, I believe, 6 or 7 games. So they had consistently been a thorn in the side of some of the other teams in the SEC. Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, some of those schools like that, they've been able to pull off an upset every now and then on the way to a bowl appearance. But the last couple of years, it has felt like their MO, their character has kind of waned a little bit. What they had built the program on has not really been there the past couple of years. So now we saw a really unorthodox season from them this past year, one that kind of put Mark Stoops on the hot seat. He almost took the Texas A&M job, or maybe did take the Texas A&M job, but that obviously fell through. So there's a little bit of hurt feelings, I think, between the fan base and Stoops at this point in time where, this is an incredibly important season for them where they really do need to get back to a bowl appearance. But it's going to be interesting because as much as we're going to talk about Stoops and his legacy at Kentucky and whether or not he's going to be on the hot seat, one factor that they are going to have to take into consideration is his buyout. He's got a pretty substantial buyout even after this upcoming season. So Kentucky, they may want to make a move, but I'm not sure that they're going to be in a position to do that.
Longest tenured coach in the SEC, been there since 2013 when you talk about Coach Stoops in Kentucky. So we've broke it down a little bit, Chase. Now I want you to kind of fully break down for me how you think this game plays out and then ultimately who wins.
I think Ole Miss wins and covers this one. I think the attention they put on it, they've been able to reload a good bit on defense. Ole Miss had the #1 team nationally in sacks and tackles for loss a year ago, lost a ton of talent on that defensive side of the ball. 10 of the 12 players from a most snap count standpoint from last season are gone. Several of those on the defensive line gone to the NFL, but it's the one area where they've really restocked the cupboard. If they can avoid any critical injuries, I think the defense is really good. I think they've been able to retool that. I think they're going to frustrate, a Zach Calzada that had a hard time against Toledo last week. They're going to get pressure. I see it playing out potentially like Ole Miss and South Carolina last year in Columbia, where Ole Miss sort of suffocated the Gamecocks. It wasn't the highest scoring game in the world, but they were able to get a 2-touchdown advantage early, ride that out a little bit, and again, avoid that one-score game in the fourth quarter where maybe the scar tissue comes back, maybe it gets a little mental for Ole Miss in spots. I think the first half is very critical for them to sort of jump out ahead, be front runners. Don't let the road crowds or the home crowd for Kentucky sort of get involved in this game there in the second half. I think Ole Miss has a lot of advantages at the skill positions, and that they probably have a way to sort of suffocate Kentucky as this game goes on.
Josh, this is a chance for Kentucky to snap a 5-game losing streak in SEC play. You get it at home. I'm sure the crowd in Lexington is going to really be rocking to try to have a repeat of what happened last year. All those things in mind, what do you think happens?
Well, I think Chase broke it down perfectly. I think Ole Miss really needs to come out of the gates pretty hot, jump on Kentucky, try to get a couple of score advantage, and put this one away going into the second half. But from Kentucky's perspective, again, they're going to try to run, and they're going to play defense, which they did pretty well against Toledo in the opener. They're particularly strong up front. So if they can turn this into a game where it's low scoring, going into the fourth quarter, maybe Ole Miss gets in the back of their mind, is this going to happen again? Are we going to fall victim to Kentucky for the second straight year? Maybe that's an area where Kentucky can capitalize and take a lead if they are within range going into the fourth quarter. But I do think that Ole Miss is putting so much stress onto this game, given what happened last year, that it's going to be really difficult for Kentucky to sneak up on them. And I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss probably wins this by a score or two.
Kentucky has covered their last 6 games against ranked opponents, though, so there is that to keep in mind as we look forward to Saturday, 3:30, with that one kicking off. Josh Edwards, Chase Parham, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And coming up this Saturday, it is a triple header on CBS Sports Network. It starts off at 12 Eastern with Liberty and Jacksonville State. Then at 3:30, you get to see UAB travel over to Navy. And if you watch that game, you will hear and you will see the one and only Brandon Baylor, who will be on the sideline for that one. We finish off at 8 Eastern, UCLA out west in Vegas against UNLV.